Hi, my name is Christopher Dadafumi,
And I'm Jonathan Davis.
and we are from CBK Associates providing this YLC how-to video for NYC Service and the Youth Leadership Council program. Focus of this video is community mapping. Community mapping is a central part of the investigation stage of the YLC process. Community mapping is a way to get to know your community and identify important issues. It guides us to take a closer look. Even if we know our community, by community mapping, we find out much more. Be sure to review the section on community mapping found on page 5 of the Youth Civic Action Guide for Investigation. Hey, JD, can you tell us what makes community mapping so informative?
A significant part of community mapping is getting input from people who live, work, or go to school in the community. Their voice adds essential perspective to really capture both the assets and needs within the community.
Thanks, JD. And keep in mind, this process will take 2 or even more meetings to complete and get a good picture of what's happening. And because this is about exploring community, some of the investigation happens between meetings. JD, you mentioned assets and needs, which are key to community mapping. Can you tell us more?
When introducing assets and needs, I ask what words and phrases come to mind with each term. It's helpful to write this down on paper if you are in person, or if virtual, use the chat or Jamboard. Often, the term assets is less familiar, so it's important to clarify these concepts. Assets can be people, structures, the natural environment, an existing program, economic means, history, culture, and more. Needs are elements missing or under-resourced for you and your community to thrive, such as adequate jobs, sources for healthy food, parks, after-school programs, safe spaces, and more. With your YLC, talk about why knowing assets and needs matters when exploring the community. For me, looking at assets matters because it gives us a lens to see what is going well, what is positive in the community before we look at what is lacking or needed. By understanding the different assets and needs within your community and including the perspectives of your constituents, you gain new information and ideas that lead to selecting an action issue. Once everyone has a good understanding of the terms, assets, and needs, it is time to start mapping.
Now, begin by closing your eyes and imagining a drone's view of your community. Is there a shape to this community? Draw the community outline as defined and described by the group. Do major streets or landmarks define its boundaries? Create the shape on paper, Jamboard, or a shared document. Note this is a symbolic map, not intended to be a scale version or inclusive of everything. This is meant to be creative and expressive, fun, and collaborative. Begin by adding places identified by youth. Where do youth go? For example, to school, to visit friends, to socialize, to do activities. Also include places youth avoid. Then ask yourself, what else can be added to the map? Safe and unsafe places, organizations that support youth, libraries and places to gain skills and knowledge, family-friendly locations, places with public art, community gardens. Continue to create a list, and when ready, place what is identified on the map. Be creative with shapes, colors as desired to identify different places. A legend that explains the symbols you use can be added as well.
After youth have added to the map, the adults in the group can suggest additional places. Color code the map so you can remember which places were added by adults. Take a look at what you have. What was surprising or unexpected? What did youth learn? What did adults learn? Review maps to determine what represents an asset and what represents a need. Use color or other identifiers to note which is which on the maps.
Now, this is the initial mapping, but you're not done yet. To prepare for the next steps, you might want to share a couple of insights that come up. Have everyone take a picture of the map so they can be adding to it between meetings. Discuss what it means to be out on the lookout for more ideas to add. As you go about your day, Look around, take note of what you see. Most importantly, discuss getting input from peers and other community members. These are your constituents. Between meetings, everyone should be on the lookout for what has been missed in the initial mapping process and return with additions from personal observations, interviewing, or surveying constituents. You can even use an elevator speech to let people know what community mapping is all about and get their input. Now, I just want to pause here and take a moment to say how important this is. From the very beginning of the YLC program, being a YLC meant youth representing the voices of youth in their communities. Now they can really fulfill that aspect of the program and capture what others see as community assets and needs.
Now, with community input and new observations, at the next YLC session, ask, what do you want to add to the map? What suggestions did peers and others make? What is new or surprising? What was confirmed? Any conflicting perspectives? What can cause this? How has community mapping changed the way you see your community? This is an overview of the assets and needs identified by YLC youth across the city in spring 2021. Donafumi, what stands out to you?
First of all, I'm impressed by all the work youth did to learn about their communities through the community mapping process. In fact, the community mapping process and results were a major feature of the 2021 NYPD End of the Year Summit and was shared with executives and community leaders. With this summary, I noticed that all communities don't have what they need. While some, for example, have family-friendly locations, others do not. This information can help the YLC to identify an action issue.
Exactly. Community mappings lead to identifying an action issue. This is a big moment in the YLC process. When you look at your map, together ask, what key issues or needs did the community mapping reveal? What issues or topics are most important to you? Aim for consensus on one key issue. Come up with 2 questions on this issue to drive further investigation and learning.
Again, community mapping is central to the YLC process. After such important work, it's helpful to pause and reflect on what happened. We can ask, what information was learned that wasn't known before? Were there any new skills or how-tos developed in the process? What leadership skills were utilized? And how was youth-adult partnership advanced by learning together through community mapping? So there you have it, an overview of community mapping. Note that this mapping process can be ongoing. When we make connections with people in the community around community mapping process, we build relationships, and these connections create investments in our success. In addition, we continually see our communities with fresh eyes and remain open to the perspectives of others. The map stays dynamic and has an ongoing purpose. Continue to draw on the interests, skills, and talents of group members throughout this process. These are the YLC's greatest assets. For more information about community mapping can be found on page 5 of the Youth Civic Action Guide for Investigation. Thank you for joining us.